to build courage as an INFP? That can be kind of tricky for some of us because the INFP's journey is typically not an easy one. Of course, we're all different, so we all have different backgrounds and different abilities and different perspectives too. But a lot of INFPs will relate feelings of low self esteem that sometimes hamper our ability to achieve the things that we set out to do. Struggle with um, courage, finding the courage or self confidence to do what we want to do. So, what are some things that can help us to achieve our goals and to find the courage that we need to at least get on the path towards making our dreams come true? Well, here are three tips in that regard. And the first one is this is something that we hear a lot, but it really works is to surround ourselves with people who verbally and actively support our goals. Now, I know for me as an INFP, sometimes I have made friends or gotten into relationships with people who I thought were supportive, but they weren't. And what I failed to notice because I had on, like, I guess what you'd call love goggles or whatever, what I failed to notice was that in the things that they said, they never really said things that were supportive. Once in a while, they might do something nice, but that was just once in a while. And verbally, what I would hear most of the time were things like, or laughter. Like if you'd say something like, "Oh, I have this idea," because INFPs, we always have ideas, right? But suppose you're presenting your idea to your friend or your significant other and they laugh at you. Now, sometimes the INFP's natural reaction is to laugh with them. Um, but if that keeps happening over and over again and you realize you're getting laughed at, you're not laughing together, but this person who's supposed to be supportive of you is actually just laughing at you, that's not really the kind of person who's going to build you up and help motivate you to reach your goals. So you might find yourself kind of like going in the opposite direction of your goals if you're constantly around people who are laughing at your ideas, or when you present your ideas, you hear them say things like, "Do you really think that's going to happen?" Or "Is that realistic?" Or "Maybe you shouldn't do that." I mean, unless you're talking about something dangerous, which most likely you're not, those aren't the kinds of responses that you want to hear from someone who's supposed to be on your team. Instead, what you do want to hear are things like, "Wow, that's a great idea. And what if you also did this?" Like, not only do they support you, but they might even add to your vision and give you more ideas. They'll help you, they'll actively help you achieve them. Like, if you want to, I don't know, go make a movie. They'll be like, "Okay, I have a camera. You want to borrow my camera?" Or "How can I help? What can I do?" Just like you would do that for them, you need to be around people who will do the same thing for you. And that's going to motivate you on the days that on the days that you're lacking courage. They'll imbue you with the courage you need to take the next step. So, and I'm looking at my notes, sorry. The next tip number two would be Ah, as INFPs, we naturally, I think the way that our brains work when it comes to seeing the world is we tend to see the big picture. So that means we see a lot of negative. We see positive, but we also see a lot of negatives. And sometimes we might smother ourselves in all of the negatives. We might look at them and forget all of the positives or think that the negatives are so much to contend with that there's no way we can make this thing happen, no matter how much we want it to happen. So what do we do in that situation? Well, a tip is to accept all of the negatives and do it anyway. which sounds a little crazy, but it is. Like if you listen to people who are successful in that they've seen a lot of their dreams come true or they've reached a lot of their goals, a lot of times they'll say things like, you have to be a little crazy, which means you have to believe in the impossible or in what you think is impossible. Sometimes as INFPs, because we are really good at seeing the big picture, we forget that we're not always right. Yes, we might see the big picture, but that doesn't mean we know everything. That doesn't mean that just because we can see all of these negatives, that they're going to happen. So sometimes we should say, yes, I see all of the buts, or by that I don't mean literal buts, you know what I mean? Like the negatives. I see all of that. I'm going to do it anyway, though, and just do it. Go for it. Well, how do you do it? How do you go for it? Well, that brings us to the final tip. Tip number 3 is to reach your big goal. When we have these huge, seemingly impossible goals, the best way to reach them or make them happen is to break them down into smaller action items. Um, and you can kind of compare it to making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, let's say that you have never stepped foot in a kitchen before, you know nothing about how to make anything, and all you know is you want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, what do? You take it one step at a time. You get your bread. No, you get a plate, and then you get the bread, and then you take out the loaves, the two that you want, or the two slices, not a whole loaf. And then you get the jelly, and then you get the peanut butter, then you get a knife. You know what I'm saying? You take it one little step at a time. And eventually, what seems like such a big task, a whole sandwich, eventually, after you do that a couple of times, you're like, oh, I can make a sandwich in my sleep. And it's the same thing oftentimes with our big goals, like going back to maybe wanting to make a movie. That's huge. If you've never made a movie before, you're like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. Well, get on YouTube, look up how to make a movie, follow the steps one at a time. And if you come to a step where you're like, okay, I don't have the money for that, I don't have the equipment, well, use something that's less expensive. Maybe it's not going to look like a Steven Spielberg film. Maybe it's going to look a little cheap. Do it anyway. It doesn't matter. Do it anyway. Just take it one step at a time and give yourself some grace. Like instead of trying to be perfect and trying to, I don't know, just blow everyone out of the water, blow yourself out of the water by making something happen. So those are my 3 tips. The first one is to surround ourselves with people who verbally and actively support our vision and our dream. Secondly, to see the positives and the negatives, but do it anyway. And thirdly, to take big goals and break them up into little things that you can do, like every day. One little thing every day that brings you just a little bit closer to reaching your goal. Okay, that's it. I hope you have a great day and thank you for watching.